my second company, I had 6 core values. I'm on stage, Chad. I'm giving the speech going through our core values, and I got to number 4 and forgot the last 2. I was one of the executives that came up with the core values. I'm on stage giving my keynote, and I forgot the last 2. How in the world can I expect everybody in the audience to remember them?
Chad Peterman here, and you are listening to Can't Stop the Growth, a platform for leaders and teams to grow and thrive. We highlight the importance of personal development, pursuing greatness, and always chasing your potential. Let's get into it. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Can't Stop the Growth. I'm your host, Chad Peterman, and today I have a very special guest. We are always looking for people who are kind of taking leadership to that next level, kind of investing not only in themselves, but in others, whether that be companies or people or whatever it is. And I know that me personally, I learn a lot when talking to kind of experts in the field. I think as leadership goes, we're always learning. We'll never stop learning. It is a infinite game, as Cynic says, in the world of leadership development. And today, I'm excited to welcome to the podcast someone who I've just met, but we have definitely people in common. But Mr. JM Ryerson, the CEO of Let's Go Win. Welcome to the podcast, JM.
Chad, thanks for having me, brother. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So we were talking pre-show. I'd like to do a little bit of digging on guests to find out what they're all about. And as I told you when we first jumped on, I go, this could probably go on for a couple hours. I think we're drinking the same Kool-Aid. We're thinking about things the same exact way. So I guess to get started, maybe give people a little bit of your background, maybe a little bit about Let's Go Win. I know you've got a podcast and books and training and all of this stuff, but maybe kind of set the groundwork for what listeners can expect today.
Yeah, and I agree with you, man. Even as you dropped Cynic and you're like, Simon Sinek, I'm like, yeah, of course he's going to talk about somebody that I love to read as well. So Let's Go Win, I actually created it by happenstance. There was no I'm going to start this company. I had built and sold companies in the financial service world. And what happened is I wrote my first book called Let's Go Win for my kids. My wife and I have 2 sons, 19 and 16 now. And the whole idea is I wanted to inspire them to live their best lives. That's where it was going to start and stop, was for my kids. And a gal I was working with said, well, you're pretty selfish. And I thought, I try not to be selfish, Chad. I try to be a giver, man. And she said, look, if you only share this book with 2 people, you're selfish. And she was right. Let's Go Win. The philosophies is not just for my kids. It's not just for the companies I work with. It's a philosophy that anybody can get a lot from. And so that's what I do on a daily, as I get to work with companies. Primarily, how I make my living, if you will, is I help companies scale their revenue up. For whatever reason, God gave me this gift to take companies, simplify it, and accelerate their profit. So that's what I get to do. But then I get to work on a lot of the performance and the mindset. And I've done that for coaching-wise for many, many years. So between the podcast and the books, I get to inspire people to live their best lives, or at least I get to be a small part of it. And it's pretty cool, brother. Every day I get to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think there's, in what you're saying, there's a lot of similarities between I love Let's Go Win, and then we have Can't Stop the Growth. Both things that it was weird. Can't Stop the Growth came from a conversation I had with my dad back when my brother and I were kind of transitioning to take over the company. And his wisdom, which he is right, is, just be careful not to grow so fast. And my response to him was, Dad, it's really hard to stop the growth when we're lifting people up and growing to provide new opportunities, and they're growing and so on and so forth. So it sounds like, again, started in the family as kind of a, hey, this is what we're going to do for the kids, which is awesome. Tell me a little bit, when you go to work with a company, my guess is as you try to scale their revenues, scale their profits, whatever it is, it probably in more instances than not comes back to how do we grow our people? How do you guys go about doing that?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no, you're good.
100%. I mean, we are in the people business at the end of the day. Yes, you might have some product, whatever your product might be, but at the end of the day, although AI is starting to shrink it a little bit more, but it's a people product that is really going to serve. And so the first thing I do, Chad, is I really look at what is the company? What's the culture of your company? Now, that sounds like a really easy, basic question. You would be shocked, or maybe you wouldn't be, how many companies, if there's 100 companies walking by right now, 90% of them won't be very clear on exactly what the culture is of their company. And if they think they are, they probably haven't verbalized it. And so the first thing that I want to do to your question when it comes to the people, who are we? Like, what do we stand for? What's the DNA of who we are? Because that affects the hiring decisions that we make. It affects the clients that we decide to bring on. It affects everything throughout. And the moment you get more clear on exactly who you are, who your ICP, as people would call it, your ideal client profile, like who that person is, now we can really start to grow the company at scale. And so it is this really basic thing that I start with, but it ends up being for lack of a better term, the Bible, if you will, that is in front of everybody, from the CEO to your most brand new employee. Everybody will have this one sheet, this one piece of paper that describes exactly what we're doing, where we're going, so we're all rowing the boat in the same direction.
Absolutely. I think, and I make this comment basically because we just went through this where, we had scaled this company and identity and all of this stuff wasn't like at the forefront. It was like, how do we grow bigger? Like just go bigger. And I think what we found is we were growing bigger by any means necessary, right? It wasn't like, we weren't like, taking advantage. We weren't doing anything illegal. It was just more so like, how do we come to market? Who do we tell our people we want to be? And then who do we tell the market that we're going to be? And like, there were these two vastly different things. We were running a bunch of promos and this, that, and the other, but then telling our people like, hey, we're premium service. We are the best of the best, like all of this. And it's like, hold on a second, we've got a problem. And so we recently just went through a project where our marketing team basically sketched out who it is that we are, kind of finding from the another cynic reference, the just cause of who are we? Why do we show up to work every single day? It can't be just about putting in a furnace or an air conditioner. It's got to be about something more. Take me through some of maybe the exercises, because you said 90% of these companies are super confused. Like, how do you guys get at that? Because I think sometimes, especially for like a leader, it's like, well, yeah, we just do this. Like, this is our thing. We're in it. But yes, they haven't verbalized it out. No one in the organization really knows that. What are some of the things that you could recommend to people as far as like exercises or just things to do that would get at that and try to cascade that down through the organization?
Yeah, and I guess we'll keep the cynic references going. Like, start with why. What is your why? Like, what literally gets you out of bed? Because if any company says it's just about making my quarterly profits or the revenue, or to to appease the board, that only goes so far. And that's not what's going to drive everybody, from your most brand new employee to everyone in the C-suite. What are we doing? So in your case, like, you guys do the HVAC, and there's a bigger why. Like, I imagine if you don't service your clients, they're going to be extremely uncomfortable, like, or could even die, to take it to the extreme. And it's a bigger deal than just making a quarterly profit or making sure that we hit our revenue goals. So getting really clear on exactly why we exist, one of the biggest questions that you can do. Now, then you get down to, as you said, we provide a premium product. Well, who does that service exactly, and why is that important to them? And you'll notice they're all these why questions. But if you spend the time and just stop for a second and slow down to say, all right, who are we? So let's go win. I'll give you our core values. They're very, very, very simple. It's happy, healthy, wealthy. And people are like, well, okay, that's really easy. Well, no, it's not actually. I make hiring decisions based on people that, if you like to be happy, great, you might be a good fit. But if you truly are a stick in the mud and it's just, I'm going to come to work and I'm going to work from 8 to 5 and then I'm going to go home, it's just probably not going to be a good fit. Like we have more of a, get together, we're laughing, we're joking, we're doing that sort of thing. And you can go through each one, the healthy and then the wealthy side, which doesn't mean just profits, but it means also spiritually and all the other things when we consider wealth. And so what I try to get to companies is say, look, let's slow down so that we can actually speed up. Because when you're working with the right clients, which newsflash, not all of them are the right clients. There are some times that they are, you know what? We don't want to take this one on because we're just not seeing eye to eye. I think the more you get clear on that, the easier it is for you to scale, for you to truly be happy, and for everybody in the organization to say, you know what? I love coming to work here. This is a great place to be. I want to grow this company.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought up core values. We've got 5 core values, and we established them, I think it was back in, call it 2020, 2021. We did a big exercise, big project. Like I think we went about it like the maybe not the best way, but we went about it a good way. It wasn't just like, hey, I just wrote them down on a piece of paper and just said, hey, these are ours. And so we did this, and I think where we've misstepped over the last couple of years is we never talked about the damn things. Like, yeah, it was in onboarding. Sure. Yeah, they may be up around the office. Sure. But what I've really made a concerted effort to do this year is like, we need to be talking about them all the time. And then on the flip side of that, we need to be talking about the people who are exhibiting those values. And so what I did is super simple. So I take it as one of those things, but you mentioned values, and maybe we can dig a little bit deeper into this about how to establish those, how to communicate them. So what I do is every Wednesday, so tomorrow morning, I have an email scheduled to go out that talks about one of the 5. And then managers are asked, once they see that value, is to submit stories of people who are exhibiting that value that we then share on Fridays. Even just like the little comments about like, oh, that's so cool. Like I nominated this person, or, hey, they're doing a really good job. And I think, really tying that, putting the values in front of people and then tying it to, hey, this is a person, like if you work with them and like they're exhibiting the value. Like that's, if you want to know how to do it, follow their lead. What do you kind of see as far as like that cascading down through the organization when it comes to the core values? I know you said you hire off of them, which I think is awesome. If you don't get the right person in the door, they're probably not going to buy into the damn values.
Yeah, and I love what you're doing because you're now making it a part of the everyday culture. And not only that it probably is a part of it, but you're actually verbalizing it, and you're doing it in a smart way, because the biggest reason that people are disengaged, the challenge we have right now, Gallup did a poll, 71% of people are currently disengaged at their job. So 10 people are walking down the hall, 7 of them are like, I don't want to be here. That stinks, man. That's not great. So for us as leaders, I want to ask why. And recognition comes at number 1. It's like, I call it EPR, encourage, praise, and recognize. That literally comes in as the number 1 reason people are disengaged. And what you're doing is beautiful, because you're saying, I'm going to recognize these people, these clients, whomever it may be, for really showing up in this core value. So you're actually killing 2 birds with 1 stone. You're reinforcing the value and you're recognizing the person. So now you're having them remember what this core value is. And now they're starting to say, oh man, my work actually matters, because we spend over a third of our life at work. You want to think what you're doing really matters. Now, here's one thing I might do just to step it up, just even maybe a touch more. Every single meeting, I start with our one sheet. It takes 20 seconds to just literally do the sheer repetition of who we are, how it shows up, why that's important. And then, just like you're doing, applying stories, now people can really start to get it in their head. Like, oh, I remember when John showed, if growth mindset was one of your values, like John showed the growth mindset. In this case, that's one of our values, because here's one of the challenges. Our brains could really only hold 3 things. Now, I know yours are 5, and look, I'm sure through repetition and years of doing it, they'll get the 5 down. But previously at my second company, I had 6 core values. I'm on stage, Chad. I'm giving the speech going through our core values, and I got to number 4 and forgot the last 2. And that stopped me for a second to think, gosh, I was one of the executives that came up with the core values. I'm on stage giving my keynote and I forgot the last two. How in the world can I expect everybody in the audience to remember them? So that day, after all the research, I came back and I was like, oh, if we use the prefrontal cortex, it can remember three. And this, marketing firms use it to their advantage. Snack, crackle, pop, three musketeers, three amigos. The point is, I simplified the values down to three. And now my most brand new employee, they got a better chance of remembering it. So I'm not saying five isn't amazing. I coach often on this and I get a lot of pushback on this. But if you go to the psychology and we really talk about the brain, you got a better chance of them remembering three. But I love what you're doing, and kudos to you and your team for sharing these stories because it's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. And you're not wrong. I have thought about this for many a years of like, all right, how can I condense these down without telling everybody that two of them are less important? I'm sure there's a way, we can combine that. But I wrote that down because, yeah, I'm the same way. Like people are like, well, what are they? I'm like, okay, well, I got this. Why am I forgetting one? Like I came up with them. How am I not remembering them? But no, I think that's great. And I think it's too, like I think so many companies are so focused on the wrong things, like to grow. They're like, oh, well, we need to push more marketing and all of this stuff. And it's like, well, like if you don't have anybody on your team that actually cares, how are you ever going to deliver anything? And so we're big believers in, being in home services. We go into strangers' homes and fix their problems. And, I've always said, or not always, but for the last number of years is that like our number one customer is our people that work here. You wear the logo, you're our number one customer. We're going to take care of you and love you to death, so that you go take care of, the people out there. What do you see that as a challenge? Are there any other challenges when, you go into a business, you're working with a CEO that just is not focused on the right things? How do you work to get that? And it may not even be just the CEO, maybe other managers and kind of the culture of the place. Like, how do you kind of unwind that? Because I'm sure that there's listeners out there like, oh, well, yeah, I guess we really don't do that. But it makes sense. How do I get there?
Yeah, one of the most important lessons that I learned long ago, and I'm not sure who said it, but it's been reinforced through time. Your vision as the leader has to be so big that everyone in your team, their vision can fit inside of it. That's our job as the CEO, as the president, as the founders of the company, that the vision has to be so big. Okay, but it doesn't stop there. On a daily basis, if you can, I know it's hard to always communicate, but we want to literally reinforce what that vision is so that Sarah, who is going out in the field, she knows that my company's vision is this. And she gets not only like, okay, this is what I read or heard about. No, I'm bought into this vision. I'm literally at this company because of this vision. When you can get that form of buy-in, now you're starting to cook with peanut oil is kind of, the saying that comes. That's where people are like, oh yeah, I'm absolutely can get behind. And that's when you start hearing them telling the stories about how amazing their company is. I will also say just real quick, as you're going through your own values, you can reinforce, let's say you take two off the board, you can have them show up in your vision or show up in your how you behave, so that you don't lose them. Maybe they're aspirational values. And our core values are these three things are just our non-negotiables. Like, this is who we are. So just remember that, brother, as you're going through that exercise, because I've gone through this many, many times and people are like, JM, we got to tell people we have these 10 values. And I'm like, I get it. No one's going to remember that, including yourself. Get your three so everybody can really remember it and reinforce whatever those other ones in your vision, in your, why we exist and how we behave. And that becomes an exercise where it's like, oh, that actually makes sense. And now they'll start to remember because they can remember those three core values, and then we can remember, oh yeah, I behave this way. So anyway, there's some creative ways to make sure you don't lose those values.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. One of the questions I wanted to ask you about, just wanted some more, kind of clarity on it. I had in my notes here that you've got this kind of framework, this ABCs that change everything framework, where A is for align, B is for believe, and C is for choose. Tell me a little bit more about that framework, and then maybe we can dive in with some other stuff.
Yeah, so the A we've kind of discussed, which that's really the alignment side of things where we get everybody from top to bottom on the same page, rowing in the same direction. The B, that really comes down to we all have these beliefs, right, wrong, or indifferent, right? Mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, brother, sister, we inherited these self limiting beliefs along the way. And often when you get in there, imagine you have a company of 100 and now you have 100 people with their own, lens, their own self-limiting beliefs. That's where that gets in the way. Now, I literally my last year the lowest performing company I had was 47%, which that's cool. Like they increased at 47%. People ask how. They're like, "How did you do that?" It's like, "Well, A, I didn't do it. They did the work. They executed." But I will tell you, one of the biggest things that I have on my side is I don't have those self-limiting beliefs. When I walk through that company, all I see is potential. I don't see any of the scars or any of the reasons that we can't. All I see is this why we can. And so that's really the belief side of things where we start to look at what are the things are potential pitfalls? How is there a way that we might not get to our goals? Let's talk about it. And then we start to work on that belief side of things because Henry Ford said it many, many years ago, whether you think you can or can't, you're right. And so if people look at your goals and they're like, well, we can't do that, Chad, because XYZ, well, we're already dead in the water. Like we're not going to get there. So that's the believe side of things. The C side of things, the choose, every single day we choose how we show up. We choose how we run meetings. We choose what the best practices would be. But often we're not intentional about it. And real quick on meetings, this is the most simple thing, guys. If you want to write this down, this is gold. When you run your meetings, I run it on AEIO. A stands for achievements, E stands for expectations, I stands for issues, O stands for outcomes. You're going to cut your meetings in half. They're going to be far more engaging, and people are actually going to want to show up to your meetings versus the long agendas where we're kind of talking about stuff. Nobody's really clear on the end goal at the end, and we leave and we're drained. And by the way, guys, I ran these meetings the same way for many years until I discovered this simple formula. So that's the C part of things is how do we choose to show up, operate on a daily basis?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you sharing that. There's a lot of things in there that I'm like, oh yeah, we're working on that, babe. We got a ways to go there. One of the things that I think, at least I personally struggle with, I'm sure there's people out there, is, from a leadership perspective, I think it's easy for your meetings to become not great, for lack of a better word, not great because there is a reluctance to hold people accountable.
Mm.
And that has been one of the things for me. I'm like, I just want to be nice to everybody. I just want everybody to have a good time. But as the leader, I'm doing everybody on my team a disservice if I don't hold them accountable so that they can reach their potential. What advice would you give for like someone struggling with that, there's people out there, they're, kind of the hard ass, like, I don't have a problem holding people accountable. Watch me. That isn't me. So, what advice would you have for people maybe struggling a little bit with, or maybe just a lack of accountability within the organization?
Your description is such a Midwest thing. I love working with companies in the Midwest because they're so kind. You always want to be liked. It's an amazing trait.
Yeah.
Now, what we want to just build on, and this is one of my favorite sayings. I just was doing a training last week in Cleveland, so another somewhat Midwest company.
Yep.
And one of the things that came out of it is clarity is kindness. Well, let's look at that statement for a while. If you look at clarity on who's responsible for it and by what timeline, if you really want to make sure that you are respectful and respected, Well, you wouldn't want to let somebody down. Again, let's go to these Midwest values. Like, if I commit to something, I'm going to get it done. Like, I was raised in Montana. That's what my dad drilled into my head. Like, if you say you're going to do something, do it. Well, if that's the case, then all we have to do is be very clear, set the expectations, set the outcomes, who's responsible for it by what time. And if they don't perform, so whenever you check in, ask the question, was I not clear on what the expectation was? No, you were. So is there anything else that got in the way that didn't allow you to perform your job? I had a sick child at home. I had this going on, whatever the thing was, because here's what I know. Nobody wants to come to work and suck at their job. I've never seen it. I mean it. I've seen people suck at their job. Don't get me wrong. I just haven't seen somebody go like, I'm going to be the worst employee ever. It just doesn't exist. It happens because of poor leadership and lack of us setting the proper expectations. So I guess the long-winded version of this is set the expectations and just follow up with, was I not clear? Is there some additional support, or did you just screw up? And by the way, sometimes people just screwed up. Sometimes things got busy, and I can deal with that as a leader. What I can't deal with is the unknown. Like, it just didn't get done, because now I'm like, well, they just suck at their job. So anyway, it's a fun conversation to have. I think if you look at it that way, like, I'm going to be kind and be clear on what happened here. How did this not get done?
Yeah. Well, and we had our kind of kickoff meeting for 26 last Friday. And I kind of I've worked with my team for I think maybe the shortest tenure on kind of our team is maybe a couple of years, but like, they all know me pretty well. And I just said, hey, this is one thing that I'm working on this year, is holding you guys more accountable. This is kind of how we're going to do it. Me, I just want to be nice and be liked and all of that stuff. But I feel like it's my responsibility to hold everyone accountable. And I'd like your buy-in from that. Like, hey, there may be some like, hey, this is what's going to happen. And for me, it's just like putting it out there, I felt like was a good step for me to like get over that hurdle of like, you don't need to be mean to anybody. And actually you're being mean to them if you don't hold them accountable, because they're never going to reach their potential. And accountability is what I said in the meeting was, hey, I think we're all aware that like holding ourselves accountable is maybe the hardest thing to do. We all want to eat right, exercise more, drink less, all of these things that sometimes happen, sometimes don't. So why don't we try the kind of the peer accountability model? That may work a little bit better. So I'm excited to see how that plays out this year.
Well, an awesome job being vulnerable with your team. I will say, just, putting it out there. Hey guys, here's what I want to work on, and here's one of my challenges. You're literally setting the table for accountability. You're asking them to hold you accountable of holding them accountable. It's actually a beautiful setup. So I don't know if you were so intentional in doing that, but it's brilliant the way you set it up. I'm going to be vulnerable about one of my challenges. Hold me accountable to holding you accountable. It's like, oh, that's really good.
I appreciate it. Sometimes we stumble onto things, right? But no, I think that's another thing I'd ask you about too, with kind of the leadership training and building these companies. I think vulnerability is one of the hardest things. It's like, for the longest time when I first started in my career, it was like, never let them see you sweat. I'm built of armor. I'll be here, first one in, last one out. Like, you'll never, never see me, succumb to anything. And I think, honestly, the biggest changer was having kids. And it was like, oh, well, I can't fake this. Like, I'm tired. They were up all night or whatever it may be. How do you kind of relay that to leadership, that vulnerability is okay and it's all right to use it? Because I think ultimately it makes us human. It makes us relatable. It's not like, oh, well, I could never do what they do. It's like, oh, well, he puts his pants on one leg at a time, just like I do. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, and Brene Brown says it's one of the greatest strengths we have, and I agree with that. Now, here's the interesting part. I'm going to assume you and I are in a similar age bracket where our parents weren't teaching us this stuff. Like,
No.
I was raised in Montana. Boys don't cry. That was the first rule, like one of my first rules as a man. And it's really, really terrible advice at the end of the day. And back in the 70s, 80s, maybe even 90s, that form of leadership worked. It's a different world, man. And people don't buy into this just go, go, go. I'm just going to pound it. They'll just leave and say, I want better. Because again, we go back. I spend 33% of my life here. I want to feel important. I want to know this person, not just as this is Chad, the boss, but actually, hey, Chad's a father with kids and he likes to play pickleball or whatever your thing is. People want to know that. They can get behind that and they can relate to that. So I think the more that people can put their guard down and say, look, I'm not going to get on stage and cry all the time, although I have cried. I'll be the first to say it. Dad, he saw it. But, to be able to share with them, like, you know what? I'm not at my best today. I want to be, but I literally got no sleep last night because Johnny was, I had to take him to the ER. That's real. And you know what a good leader would do? You know what? Why don't you go home, get some rest, come back when you're ready to go? And I think it's really when we can just take a step back and go, we're all humans here. We're going through this experience. It's never going to be perfect. And when we need additional support, we need to speak up. Like, yep, I'm not at my best today, guys. I need your best to support me today. And tomorrow it may flip. I'm going to be ready to go and charge through it. And if you're off a little bit, I got you. And if we can just have that where it's like, there's no judgment. I'm not going to ream you about, being tired. Look, if it becomes habitual, sure, we'll have a conversation. But if it's a one-off thing, yeah, share it and let's move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the big pieces, especially in the trades, right? Like you talk about the, boys don't cry. Some of my older field pros, like there's no news is good news. We tough it out. We run hard. We don't complain, all of this stuff. But then you have this new generation that, we're kind of leaning on them to share their knowledge with and all of that. And what I always tell, and even some of our managers, some of them are from the field and were technicians for a long time, and now they're managing. And the thing that I always try to relate to them is like, hey, every generation is different. And the generation before you is always going to complain about the one behind them because they're going to do things a little bit different. So it's like going to happen. Like someone's complaining about you while you're sitting here. That generation ahead of you is complaining about you right now. And so like I've tried to like get to this point of like, we need to meet the people where they are. So the young men and women that are between 20 and 30, yeah, they're a little bit different. They want different things in life. They value different things. How do we meet them where they are? And that doesn't mean that we just need to abandon all of our views. It doesn't mean that, working hard and showing up and all of that is a bad value. It just means that theirs can be good too. And we've got to be able to connect the dots with those. What kind of advice do you give to leadership that you're like, hey, I don't know if this guy's struggling to get over this generational kind of just discrepancy and, different things like that. Cause I can tell you my dad's still not gotten over that. You didn't understand why that's happening.
Yeah, I mean, well, you're coming in from Indianapolis. Let's just take Indiana. There's this new head coach that's absolutely shifted the culture of this football team. Now, if you were to ask Signetti right this second, is he come down on every player with an iron fist? Some he gives a hug to because you know what, they're living in Indiana, and they're from Florida and they're away from their home, so maybe they require a hug. This is the emotional intelligence that a leader needs to have. Some people, if you want to motivate me, here's the best thing you can do. You can't get this done. Tell me something I can't do, and the rebel in me is like, you know what? Go blank yourself. I will get it done. That motivates me. Some people, they need that, encouragement, that pat on the back, those attaboys. And here's the deal. Nobody's right or wrong. There's not a one-size-fits-all leadership. It just doesn't exist. So as emotional human beings, really read the room, check in, and even ask them, hey, can I ask you what really inspires you? What gets you going? What's something, because what I want them to do is perform. Do I really care how I need to go about as a leader? Not really. At the end of the day, I want the execution and I want the results. So if Tom needs a hug, I'm giving Tom a hug. But if I don't know, Susan needs a ass chewing, then I'm gonna do that. It's okay both ways, but it can't be a one size fits all. I'm just gonna be this way with everybody. That's just not being a great leader.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm glad you brought up Coach Signetti. So one of my high school teammates is actually the D tackle coach on IU. So he's got to kind of see it front row. So we'll go play golf in the summer, and I'm just like kind of peppering him with questions. So like, what's this like? What's this look like? And all he says is he's like, he is the most down to earth person on the face of the earth. Like, yeah, you see him on the sidelines, and he's got all the which I thought his answer to why do you look like that on the sidelines, when he said, if I'm going to ask them to play 150 plays all out and all in, I can't be over here high-fiving and smiling and all of that. I've got to play 150 with them. And I was like, I came out of, I'm not actually supposed to be talking about this because my wife works for Purdue. But we're going to talk about it because I don't think she listens to this anyway. But I think, and I want to get your opinion on this, this has got to be one of the greatest leadership stories on the face of the planet, like ever. Like, he went into the worst program ever, and he's come out on the other side, probably potentially going to win a national title. Like, what are you seeing from this whole thing that's transpired?
Yeah, it's phenomenal. I mean, look, if it didn't say Indiana on the side of the helmet and it said Alabama or Georgia, we might call this the greatest football team we've seen on a college level. Like, it's truly remarkable. And actually, in the Midwest, you've seen two examples recently. Now, this is a radical one, like worse to literally, unless a miracle happens, they're going to knock Miami down, and they're going to, because they're as physical a football team as Miami, in my opinion. You saw it with Dan Campbell up in the Detroit Lions, like horrible, horrible group. And yet he has just changed the culture. And I guess what I would say is, if you look at Signetti's background, it wasn't this awesome rise to fame. He wasn't the golden child, guys. If you dig back into it and look back at even before he got to JMU and some of these other programs, he was overlooked constantly. And so he brings to it this chip on his shoulder. He brings to it this, we are absolutely going to get it done at all costs, and it's going to be done ethically. I mean, that's the thing that's beautiful. He is doing it in a way that I think it bothers people, because he is a good guy that just said, you know what, I'm not going to play by your rules. Their average team is 23 years old. Yeah. He found a loophole in the college football program that is just phenomenal, because again, I'm a Packer fan. Our average age is almost 25. That's almost the same age of a college football team and a pro football team. But to answer your question, I think it's phenomenal. But it wouldn't be because he's an X's and O's genius. He inspires people. He absolutely says, I expect your best, and I'm going to be right there with you. I expect the best for me. Who doesn't want to go to work for that guy? Yeah. I mean, this guy will absolutely be there no matter what. He's going to push you. And I think as leaders, going back to your previous, we want to be liked. Sometimes that's not what your job is. Sometimes your job is to grab the face mask and shake it, knowing that, guess what? This is coming from a place of love, not from ego. I'm shaking your face mask out of love. But it is one of those things where it's like, inspire your team. And he is absolutely, it's been fun to watch. I hope he stays at Indiana. I know NFL is going to come knocking, assuming they win, but it is absolutely a remarkable story.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's been fun just to watch this whole thing. And obviously, I've lived in Indianapolis. I grew up here, lived here my whole life. So everyone, IU football, what are we talking about? Like, it's even still weird. Like, it's even still weird to see them playing out there. It's like, hold on a second. This is not the right game. Where am I at? But yeah, and I think, just what seems like just the sheer belief in what that is, I think is just transpired over that team. And I think the other remarkable piece, and you kind of touched on it there at the end, is, yeah, they've given him a lot of money to stay there. He's fought for his assistants to have a lot of money. But I don't know that you're going to see many of those top. I mean, his D coordinator, I think, won the defensive coordinator of the year award, offensive coordinator. Like, I don't think you're going to see those guys leave. because of what you said. It's like, well, I want to come to work for this guy. Like, I don't want to just go chase another dollar. Now, there are multiple dollars and lots of dollars, but I don't want to go chase that somewhere else. I want to work here in this program, which I think is remarkable. And obviously, I think the biggest statement as a leader are, do your people want to be there? Do they want to, see out your vision, which obviously he has proven that, yes, they do. But I know we're bumping up on time, and I know you got a commitment here in about 10 minutes. So I wanted to wrap up here. Just, obviously a ton of great information, a ton of just great stuff on leadership and development within your company and stuff like that. Where's the best place? I mentioned you podcast, books. Where's the best place for people to reach out if they want more information about what you guys are doing, how you're doing it, so on and so forth?
Yeah, you know what? I'll give you two resources. Letsgowin.com. You look up Let's Go Win. Here I am. And I'll even give you my email, because here's my challenge to anybody listening. If you're like, yeah, dude, I want to do some of these things, reach out. I cannot tell you how many podcasts I do, Chad, and somebody's like, oh, that was awesome. And I was like, well, and they present me with a problem. I said, why didn't you reach out? Well, I didn't want to bother you. I literally told you, go ahead and bother me. I love helping companies. I may not be the right person for you. I'm only really looking for one more client this year, but I know resources. So you can reach me at jm@letsgowin.com. And here's what's funny. I was on an airplane, and like I'm wearing today, I was wearing my swag, my gear. And he goes, let's go in. He goes, dude, I've listened to your show. I was like, cool. Thanks, man. That's awesome. He goes, you said this one thing and I need it. So I was like, that's cool. He goes, gosh, I just wanted to reach out and talk. I said, well, why didn't you? It's just so funny to me, brother, because again, we're human beings. I love talking to people. So anyway, a long-winded way of saying jm@letsgowin.com or Let's Go Win. Just hit me up, guys. I love what I do.
Awesome. Thanks again, JM. I appreciate the thoughtfulness and the graciousness with allowing people to reach out. I'm sure most are listening, as we all do, because we're trying to solve something. So I think you could be a tremendous resource for that. Appreciate all the insights, and really appreciate you being on.
Thank you, brother.
Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to connect with me personally, you can find me at chadmpeterman.com. To see what our team's up to, you can visit petermanbros.com. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channel and consider joining the CSTG arena. As always, keep growing out there.